There's some big picture items out there in terms of us vis-a-vis China that are hopefully going to be addressed. I mean, the Panama Canal, for one, right? Here's Pete Hegseth talking today.
To be very clear, China did not build this canal. China does not operate this canal. And China will not weaponize this canal. Together with Panama in the lead, we will keep the canal secure and available for all nations through the deterrent power of the strongest, most effective, and most lethal fighting force in the world. We will do this in partnership with Panama. Together, we will take back the Panama Canal from China's influence. And we will do this along with other capable, like-minded allies and partners. This is what peace through strength looks like.
I don't disagree. Like, the Panama Canal is critical. It's right here in our Western Hemisphere. Just go back to the Monroe Doctrine. We want to have a lot of presence. We don't want to be surrendering it to China. And that's effectively what's happened over the years. So we can let Panama take the lead, but we need to make sure that we still have access to that canal. It's critical for a variety of reasons. So that's important. The other thing you got going on is 104% tariffs now being leveled at China because they're trying to play some giant game of chicken. And I just got to tell you guys, you know what? You're not going to win that one. You're just not going to win that one. Donald Trump has that all day long because, you know, he doesn't really like China that much to begin with, shall we say. And I do have a feeling, dare I say, I do have a feeling that he's willing to go the extra mile, right? Vis-a-vis China, etc. He's willing to push that as hard as he needs to push it in order to get the desired result, which is some kind of more fair, if there could ever be a fair trade agreement with China. Right now, we get a lot of goods from China, but none of them are critical. That's the good news, okay? Like, do you need more junk from China? Probably not. So when you put 104% tariff on things, guess what? People aren't going to buy the junk from China anymore. Is it a critical supplier in the overall sort of high-tech manufacturing supply chain? No. So that's one where, like, I'm going to give them some bandwidth. Like, you have some room to wiggle there, shall we say. And I think people are willing to take a little bit of pain. I mean, the Chinese stock market, at least in yesterday's market, was getting hammered because of this. But the tariffs for everyone else, I would say we got some bits of good news. For example, you had Scott Bessent, smart guy, out there on CNBC actually this morning talking about the negotiations that he's engaging in with Japan. That is important. You know what? It's really, really important that we keep those allies close. So if you're going to put in tariffs, you can put in 10%, maybe 15% there for something like Japan. You also want to ensure that you have places like Korea, right? Korea as well is another one where you have an advantage and you want to keep them close and basically away from China. So there are some strategic reasons to do this in addition to economic reasons. And you heard Scott Bessent really articulating some of this earlier today on Squawk Box. Let's take a listen.
I think the market took some solace, though, in kind of a change in the perspective. Just last week, we were hearing no negotiations. Now, we're talking about, you mentioned 70 different countries. We're approaching Japan, I guess, was early in terms of placing a call to the White House. And now, in earnest, you and the U.S. Trade Representative are going to begin negotiations with Japan. I think that some of the stability in the markets, there's no doubt that's what I think helped massage the markets to some extent.
Well, look, Joe, my advice on April 2nd to our trading partners was not to panic, don't escalate, and then we will see where President Trump is after a period of days or weeks. The response was overwhelming, so it was after a period of days, and he decided that it would be a good time to begin negotiating. The Japanese were very good actors. The president had a very good call yesterday with the Japanese prime minister that led to these negotiations. And look, the Japanese are military partners, they're economic partners. We have a substantial imbalance with them, and I'm sure that they are as anxious as we are to get this remedied.
And somebody said, well, what would you do? What can you do? So easy. I drop a 25% tax on China. And I said to somebody that it's really the messenger. The messenger is important. I could have one man say, we're going to tax you 25%. And I could say another, listen, you motherfuckers, we're going to tax you 25%.
Last year criticizing U.S. foreign policy. What would you do differently, Donald?
I'd make our allies, forgetting about the enemies you can't talk to so easily, I'd make our allies pay their fair share. We're a debtor nation. Something's going to happen over the next number of years with this country, because you can't keep going on losing $200 billion, and yet we let Japan come in and dump everything right into our markets.
Okay. So that's been his philosophy. That you saw something from 2012, you saw something from a couple decades ago. It's been his philosophy for a long time. And his concern is that America's kind of losing out. But I'm going to play you another point of view. Let's go to Joe Kernan over on CNBC, one of my former colleagues there, who's kind of making the point that, maybe we're misguided. You can get some revenue there, but I've said to you guys, look, I run a trade deficit with my dry cleaner. Why? Because I don't want to do my dry cleaning. And it's not like they're over at the dry cleaner getting my financial research from 76 Research, by the way, nor are they consuming my podcast, but that's okay by me, right? Because, you make certain strategic decisions. So it's why you kind of have to think about the nuance of this, China being something a little bit different. I'll let Jess say it.
I think the market took some solace, though, in kind of a change in the perspective. Just last week, we were hearing no negotiations. Now we're talking about, you mentioned 70 different countries. We're approaching Japan, I guess, was early in terms of placing a call to the White House. And now, in earnest, you and the U.S. Trade Representative are going to begin negotiations with Japan. I think that some of the stability in the market.
Oopsie. Okay, so that was the earlier one that we saw. But he had Rand Paul on there too. And Rand Paul was very, very critical, saying, the whole debate over tariffs is fundamentally backwards in that, you shouldn't just be focused on trade deficits. I think you can focus a little bit on tariffs, right? But not just trade deficits sort of just exclusive, because that doesn't account for the good stuff that you get in trade. Now, the fear here is that the market has gotten so crazy, there has been so much volatility that you're actually going to see much more pain ahead. I do think, when it's all said and done, China gets the short end of this stick. I mean, we're China's biggest customer. Sure, they can sell some stuff to Europe and other places, but we're the number one economy in the world, all right? So you really don't want to piss us off, so to speak. And they're doing that. They're definitely doing that. President Trump out just moments ago speaking about this. Let me take you to him.
We've been ripped off and abused by countries for many years with the tariff situation. They've used tariffs against us. We didn't use tariffs against them or in any way. I mean, we just didn't use them of any monumental proportion. And so we are doing it now.
We're doing it now, and it's going to have some implications. I'm less worried about China than I am sort of the rest of the world because, well, we've talked about it. I think that the math was a little bit crude. They had a lot of errors in their 9th grade algebra, and I believe the president deserves better. I mean, it shouldn't be like that. I think Bessent's out trying to save it a little bit. It'll all be fine. I mean, look, I'm still buying. I was still buying today, believe it or not. Still buying because, I'm long-term bull, and I think that eventually you've got to think about how these market swings are going to affect your portfolio. I look at what we've accomplished at 76 Research. You can get our research for just $1 a month. I know a lot of you are like, what do I do? What do I do? If you have the ability to put a little bit of money to work, these are actually times when you want to be selective and you want to get out there in front of it. So I encourage you to get our newsletter, just $1 a month. Go to 76research.com, use code word dollar. I think I'm basically a realist on this, guys, because all I want is for you to make money. I think it'll all settle out in the end. I think it's going to be uncomfortable a little bit. Hey, that's the name of the game, but that's part of what markets are. Reminder, If you're that uncomfortable, you probably want gold in the portfolio. Up to $15,000 in free silver right now. Text Trish to 65532, 65532. But there are a lot of fears. I mean, it was all over the place yet again today, right? I can't remember. Did we start down or up? At one point we were up quite nice, considerably, and then we ended the day down. I think you're going to have a lot more of that. Volatility is back, okay? It's going to be wild. We're going to get through it. I have things that I love about the president's plan, and then I have things that maybe I don't love as much about the president's plan, but I think when it's all said and done, we're all going to love it. I just worry about some of the interim damage along the way, right? We want to make sure that we don't go into a recession. Well, that'll cure inflation for you. You don't have to worry about inflation if we're in a recession. So a lot of moving parts in this, a lot of moving parts. Sophisticated stuff. We put out a number of notes on it. I do encourage you to go over to 76 Research and read those, because we have the perspective that you want to be able to still invest in this environment. And I think when it's all said and done, you're going to have a better scenario in the future, right? I'm not going to bet against America. I'm not about to bet against this team. I just am recognizing that there's going to be some ups and downs along the way. And, well, for certain, it's going to be tough for China, right? Definitely tough for China. Have you noticed that I'm sounding better? My voice is starting to sound better. Again, I credit my nice vitamins I take every day from Balance in Nature. Code word Trish. Go to balanceinature.com. Again, one of our lovely sponsors here on our independent show, our independent podcast. We love these guys for all they do to bring this show to you for free every day. Balanceinature.com. Use my code word Trish. You get 35% off, free shipping, plus money back guarantee. All right, we've got more to put out over at 76 Research tonight, because we've been all over this market for you. I want to continue doing that. I do think, broad exposure to this stuff, guys. Broad exposure is what I'm about anyway. I think that ultimately, it is going to be okay for us. Maybe not so okay for China. They got that 50% increase, and what do you know? It turns out to be around 104% total. I think it is a game of chicken, and this is one president that you absolutely, positively do not want to mess with. So I'm going to get back to work watching these markets. I encourage you to do the same, and we'll have more news again on the Trish Regan Show live tomorrow.